So I, like most people, am something of a meme aficionado, or at least I try to be. I love a good meme, and I love to appreciate good memes. And so came across an image online a while back, and I'll throw it into as the thumbnail, just for the sake of that way everyone can see it. But it's an image of Jesus, and he's like, "Sup," and then his disciples are all around him, and he's like, they're all like, they respond in kindness, right? "Sup," and using, obviously, like, that's the greeting, right, that people often use. It's got that Bud Light Super Bowl commercial energy to it, and takes that, and it's like, and Jesus supped with his disciples with a verse quoted. And what that obviously originally meant was to sup, like you eat supper in the evening. Supplication means to meet together and to either like to discuss something or to just like be in fellowship with one another, to sup. But it interprets it in an intentionally wrong way for the purpose of humor. Well, which is what all humor does at its most basic, right? Well, takes that, and I think that like it reminded me of something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and even like coming across that image was a while ago. So this is a while ago. But the idea that people have this affection, this obsession even at times, to taking something and interpreting it in a modern way and then calling that the original intent. And this is all throughout. I mean, it's a trademark or a kind of watermark of theological liberalism, of that people will say, well, Jesus said to love one another, and people, when they are having sex, it's called making love, and so I'll take that to mean that I can have sex with anyone that I want. Or that's obviously, I mean, that's a very cartoonish example, but it's not an unreasonable one. It's not one that isn't out there somewhere. People make that argument all the time. But beyond that, interpreting, I mean, love wins, right? The popular Rob Bell book, that love is all equal, right? That is all basically the same thing, and so it's no difference whether a person is engaged in something the Bible clearly calls sin, because, well, it's all just love, and love is all the same. And it's no, that's not true. And in fact, the act of endorsing sin is one of the most unloving things you are capable of doing. There's a hard argument, like, what could you possibly do to somebody that's worse than consigning them or resigning them to eternity of separation from God, because you told them at one point that they didn't have to forsake sin in order to be a Christian, and so they've never truly received Christ because they've never received freedom from their sin, and you have damned them to hell because the gospel you gave them is not a real gospel. It didn't have the power to save them because it's not the real thing. In the same way of that, if I offer you 2 vials, you're dreadfully sick. Let's say even you have COVID, even though it'll probably get this flagged or something. Like, you have a deadly disease, and I have 2 bottles. This one has saline, has no medical, usually often as a placebo. I have this one over here that's the cure for that disease, and you would rather have this one, the placebo. And I'm like, no, I have the option I can withhold what you want in order to give you what you need, or I can just give you what you want, and as a result, you get sicker, despite what you consider to be your cure. You keep getting sicker and sicker because you're not actually taking the cure. You're just taking something that looks like the cure. Have I been loving to you to do this? And the answer is clearly no. It would be better for me to withhold this and to give you, maybe even again, like, obviously I can't do it against your will. If you say, I don't want any treatment if you're going to give me the cure that I don't want, then I am duty bound to say, all right, fine. You either receive no treatment, which is the same outcome that this would give you, and you would die, or you could take, and maybe over time as you get sicker, maybe your heart will change. Maybe you'll change your mind. Maybe you'll realize that I'm right, that this cure is what you needed. See, that's what the gospel is. It's a cure for the thing that ails you, which is sinful separation from God. And the permission to indulge sin is not a cure to that. Whether that's permission to engage in homosexuality, permission to engage in any other deviant sexuality, or premarital or extramarital affairs and sexual contact, or doesn't matter what your preferred sin is. Me just giving you a blank check or permission to engage in that as if it doesn't affect your spiritual reality is a lie. That's false. It is not good. So, this is what I'm saying. It would be better for me, and it would be better for you, to give you the real gospel. And to stop simply just because I want to interpret it in a modern way that gives me permission to lie to you, doesn't make that the right thing to do. Simply, and James says as well that anyone who teaches, not many people should desire to be teachers, because teachers undergo greater condemnation. So the act of teaching someone else carries with it an extraordinarily great weight, a destructive, dangerous weight to it, that if you are not teaching the truth, not only are you giving people spoonfuls of condemnation, but you're swallowing that down yourself. Therefore, it is important to acknowledge, to research, and to expose the real classical, the original intent of what Scripture is teaching, and to not just fall back onto the couch of what feels comfortable in our modern era, what they'll accept, because they're sinful people who hate God and don't want to accept the truth unless God gives them as a gift the faith to believe it.